Future Redeemed is a fun mix of expanding on Xenoblade 3 ideas and supplying great fan service. That fan service gives us new glimpses into Rex and Shulk as adults, and perhaps more importantly, as dads.
Let's go! That's what I wanted. That's what we all needed. More dad-like figures. More rugged adult men. I do not have a type. I do not.
Dads who fit nicely into the generational and family themes Future Redeemed is all about. Will these parental themes that Rex and Shulk specifically explore be applicable to most of the Xenoblade audience? No. But maybe one day it will. And it's still worth highlighting how our favorite heroes are doing a couple of decades after their grand adventures. Now, to understand how Rex and Shulk approach being dads, it's important to look back on their own parents. Rex and Shulk were both effectively raised by single guardians, Rex with Corrin and Shulk with Dixon. Let's start with Dixon, a war veteran who raised Shulk ever since he found the kid in a cave. Kinda. Not really. Dixon feels pretty laissez-faire as a guardian. He just needs Shulk to be alive. He's not really constantly there in Colony 9. From what we see, Dixon just does what is required. However, Shulk picks up a love for gadgets and tech due to the two cooperating on some pretty important sword tech research. And the two are able to bond over the shared goal of researching the Monado. In spite of Dixon's agenda, there is no doubt Shulk at least valued his relationship with his guardian. A relationship that Shulk felt was genuine for 10, 12 years? Something like that. Moving to Rex after his parents died, he was primarily raised by Corrin. Corrin is a very stereotypical mother figure. She looks after a great swath of kids in Fawncett.
How original.
And places emphasis on community and togetherness.
Daring today, aren't we?
Even with Rex becoming independent at a young age, it is obvious that Corrin's upbringing instilled some important values in him. The good old family values of sending money home to Fawncett, following that salvager code nonsense, and respecting your elder. Wait, Rex, where are you going? Rex, where are you going, young man? Get back here and listen to your four-legged tortilla of a father right now. Oh yeah, there's also Gramps. Gramps does fill in some kind of guardian role with Rex, but it's obviously not very traditional. Gramps cannot interact with Rex the same way Rex would interact with his kids, his human kids. There is definitely still a bond present, but being nice and cooking your food at a specific point on someone's back feels more like a symbiotic bond of nature rather than the bond between a parent and child. Now, Corrin and Dixon definitely impact Rex's and Shulk's lives respectively, but it's that hero's journey that really matures the two protagonists, regardless of how many years those quests actually took. And on those quests, Rex and Shulk looked up to two adults in particular, Zeke and Dunban. These are the two that I would say have a greater impact on how Rex and Shulk act in Future Connected. Let's go to Shulk's side first again. Dunban is super collected, doing his best to keep his emotions as far from his sleeve as he can. Through whatever tough times are thrown at him, Dunban is composed and reliable. He wants to be a rock that the younger folks can rely on. He elects to shoulder that burden of leadership and prevents himself from appearing too emotional. He's also a bit reclusive. I guess that's what lying in bed for a year will do to a guy. He usually needs prompting from others to really convey what's on his mind. When he finds out his dead sister is alive, he locks out everyone else and takes time to himself. From that time spent alone, Dunban gathers himself and comes out with some rational positivity and helps Shulk out through that same struggle. However, Dunban does have that more vulnerable and passionate side that bubbles up as well. It's not terribly frequent, but it's there. Dunban presents a poised exterior that covers up an unsure, sensitive interior. Moving along to Zeke, he is basically the opposite of Dunban. Zeke is someone who can be knowledgeable and thoughtful, but more often than not, elects for unabashed, rambunctious energy instead. Zeke is pretty willing to just speak his mind. He's upfront with telling his dad he sucks and telling others that Tantal sucks. He takes time to reflect on these things later, but in the moment he is authentically Zeke. Zeke just wants to exude cool uncle material. Zeke presents a brazen exterior that covers up a wise interior. Of course, Rex has another human adult in the party that he learns from, Morag, in particular the value of selflessness, of putting the needs of others above the needs of your own. It's a value Rex certainly already held, but seeing the lengths that Morag and even Zeke go in service of their country serves to reinforce that value. Rex got to learn from Vandom as well, so really Rex had a lot of role models he can pull from. I don't want to explicitly point out every single time Rex and Shulk act like they're role models, so just think about it to yourself as we go through this. Alright, let's move on to what actually happens in future Redeemed, and how Shulk and Rex interact with Nickel and Glimmer, respectively. Shulk makes his future connected debut in a mellow setting, speaking to a prisoner with overall kindness and understanding that emulates his one-armed buddy. When Rex first shows up, it is a fight set piece, and he can enter with all the aplomb and flair that Zeke would be proud of. That leads off to an awesome fight scene. Great stuff, we all know this. After all the fan service, Rex needs to figure out who led the Mobius here in the first place and give them a proper, it was Glimmer. Rex, I think, appropriately berates Glimmer over her misguided selfishness. All of Rex's role models were always looking out for others as their form of leadership. And Glimmer prioritizing herself over the safety of, let's say, 30 other people,
that is dangerous,
is a no-go. It is a high-stake blunder that deserves to be corrected. Rex and Shulk both make blunders during their heroic journeys, and each of them have the support of their party and friends to fall back on. On Rex's big mistake specifically, he is appropriately chewed out by his gang, not so much because of the mistake itself, but because of his attitude. And Rex needed that deserved kick in the pants to get himself into a better headspace. So that's maybe what compelled Rex to be more harsh on Glimmer. It is a teaching that his party used on him long ago, so let's implement it again, let's run it back. I mean, lecturing is the only thing Gramps could presumably do in order to drill something through young Rex's head. The issue is that the scolding young Rex received was coming from trusted comrades. When he now scolds Glimmer, he is a stranger at that moment. He is not a trusted source in Glimmer's headstrong, stubborn mind. It is not going to go over very well. And that's just taking the perspective of effectiveness, completely disregarding the human element of compassion, forgiveness, and all that. Something I realized I completely misremembered in Rex's anecdote because he didn't really respond to the harsh lashing out and getting the shit beat out of him by Nia and Bridget. It was the heartfelt speech from Poppy that really got Rex into gear. Rex should understand the value of being kinder in these scenarios. But it's understandable, right? The kindness only happened for like 20% of the lecture, whereas more often than not, he was getting yelled at and punched. Again, correctly, mind you. Rex does reckon with this lecture later that even if he was a trusted figure to Glimmer, it is probably best for him to default to kindness first. Did Glimmer almost kill like 30 people?
That's too dangerous.
Okay, yeah, but Rex can still approach this Gramps-esque lecture with a bit more tact.
You ever done anything dangerous?
He doesn't need to completely speak his mind and go off with the more aggressive angle. Alright, big L out the gate for Rex. Terrible parenting, just bad relationship, bad blood to start it off. Not great, champ.
Great disappointment.
Let's see how Shulk is doing. Shulk and Dixon formed a well-stated bond through their love for technology and nerd shit. And would you look at that, Nichols got this backpack, he's into tech and nerd shit too. Shulk's on easy mode. He can just form a bond with his son through their shared hobby. Alright, go get him, champ.
Whoa, that's an Equities pulse driver assembly. No wonder it's so pleasing to the ear. And melted with a cylinder. Perfect soldering technique.
Hey, stop that.
A tool is merely a tool. It does as the user chooses. Wouldn't you agree? Be it to kill others, or to help them.
So Shulk makes good progress, but in that conversation, Shulk said 124 English words, while Nickel said 48. Nickel is not very social, so Shulk can't really gauge how well he's doing at forming a bond. The shared hobby is still certainly helpful, though, in this regard. A good starting point. Alright, Rex, hopefully you can connect with Glimmer through a shared hobby in the same way. Let's see here. Glimmer's main hobby is music. Ah, shit. Is Ursula available to teach you anything, Rex? No? Okay, we're out of luck there. Rex never shared hobbies with his male guardian. His male guardian was 100 times his size and had 4 legs. He has picked up a knack for cooking, perhaps starting from Core and also a bit of Zeke. But Glimmer isn't all too interested in that. Rex could not make that hobby connection up to his guardian and can't really make the same connection down to his kid. Shulk, meanwhile, does his best to use that hobby connection to his advantage, prompting Nicole to help out with techie things like the ether slide, something that, at least from his perspective, helped strengthen his bond between him and Dixon. It's good on Shulk to recognize that he may need to drag Nicole into things because he is the authority and Nicole is shy and reserved. In spite of this seeming progress, Shulk does not agree with Rex's take that Nicole is outright easier to connect with because of this. Shulk has advantages, but Nicole does not talk a bunch. There is still that rift that Shulk needs to overcome with not being able to know what his kid really thinks. His kid is not like Glimmer, where whatever she says you can trust is what she actually thinks. But in this scene, Shulk elects not to make a show of it. It is solely his problem. He doesn't need to push it on others because it was Rex that came for advice from him. So instead, Shulk just lends a kind ear to Rex's problem and offers his take. And Rex, of course, proposes his own issues with connecting with his stubborn daughter. I wonder where she gets it from. Rex also gives a better glimpse into his, let's say, starting view of the parental bond. He supported himself at a young age, but he's trying maybe a bit too hard to be a forceful hand to support Glimmer. Rex needs to realize that Glimmer herself is fully capable of being on her own and supporting herself. Rex needs to be able to support his daughter when she needs him, rather than him overbearingly forcing that support onto her. He needs to chill and be a more reliable emotional rock. Again, even Zeke knew when to ease up and sit some stuff out. Even if our parent-child duos have only been together for a couple weeks, the kids have grown up and don't require the usual support a parent offers in what may feel like early years to Rex and Shulk. And as such, Shulk gives the advice to let Glimmer be the proactive one, rather than Rex doing so as a makeup effort. If you're hoping to create a world with choice, you need to be comfortable with the people close to you making their own choices. And Rex's efforts to let the kids do their own thing are soon tested as the kids want to assist in the battle against Alpha. I doubt either dad wants this from the start, but of course it is Rex that objects, and objects fiercely. Rex does not mince his words here. He scolds that Alpha would beat the shit out of him. Of course, that is contrasted with Shulk, who tries to calmly reason out that the Ouroboros power has just been awakened and the kids can't get too full of themselves. While Shulk may not be as loud as Rex, neither dad is about to let their kid walk into a threat that took out Rex's eye and Shulk's arm, and even that, luckily.
This time round, it'd be doing me no favors to try and look out for you while fighting.
In fact, protecting you from Malos would take all my energy.
You fell victim to one of the classic blunders!
Shulk is willing to hear out the idea of drawing more power from the Ouroboros stone, and even proposes that he and Rex can act as the trigger. Shulk is willing to reason out and set up the scenario, even if he hopes the scenario tilts in his favor. Rex just flat out wants to squash this burst of teenage angst before getting rattled in. He'd probably rather they waste enough time looking for a big trigger that the point just becomes a wash, but no, it's time to battle. And Rex is at least enthused by the proposition. Always a showman. Both dads give it their all, but get the shit kicked out of them, and are now forced to cede their big folks authority card, even if they weren't around for the first 8, effectively 18-ish years of it. The kids have grown up, and as that progresses, the authority of the big folks means less and less. Sure, the big folks can set their strict ground rules for safety, but the time will come when the kid is beyond the control of those ground rules. And continuing to support the kid when they grow and bend the rules is far more important than the rules themselves. When the time comes to show that support for Glimmer and Nicole's victory, Shulk is quite fluent and appraising, while Rex is of course much more direct with half the words Shulk uses. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, riding off the momentum of the
You did good, kid. Really.
Glimmer is the proactive one that reaches out to Rex. Both of them are able to apologize, and we move to Rex's reason for fighting. How he is willing to risk his life and endure whatever hardships he must for the sake of making other people's lives better. For Smiles. Going beyond the mere role of a parent, ideally, that should be the role of everyone, with or without Rex's powers and strengths. To always look out for others and bring just a tad more happiness into the world. It does not have a tangible benefit. Hell, it may not have a benefit to you at all, but you should take value in the happiness of others. You should be willing to take short-term losses to yourself to make a happier, better world. It's something Rex has always been about, but now he has one certain smile that he values higher than his own life. And so that value gets turned up quite a few notches. Side note, but I really love a few things this scene does, whether intentionally or not. Rex fumbling with his cup because depth perception is a bitch. Rex constantly turning to face forward, which means he's not looking at Glimmer as a sort of shy gesture. Great stuff. Alright, so the kids are in, we scale up the Black Mountains, we take out N, we take out Alpha, and it's time for closing remarks. The adults have already given their time and effort for the world and the next generation, so all that's left is to give their lives, effectively. The dads get to wrap us up by imbuing the kids with life force that will allow them to live beyond their Ionian terms, the passing of the torch onto the later generations. It is important to distinguish what this torch actually is. When Rex says the future generations carry the dreams of the prior, he's not talking about individualistic dreams. He's not passing along any dreams of being the world's greatest salvager. He's talking about broad strokes, the dream of a better, happier world, and having a family and community that will bring about that dream no matter how many centuries it takes. By imbuing those values into others, Rex and Shulk get to long outlive their mortal lifespans. Future Redeemed is overall great, but I wish they could have found a way to give everything more time to breathe. Everything just moves a bit too fast. I get it's a DLC side story and you gotta go fast, but I just want more interactions with all the various duos. Shulk and Nickel barely have really anything past their first encounter. I just want more of the characters. Matthew and A have great chemistry, but at least I as the player understand that bond is years in the making.
Mobius are always present for the aftermath.
Then that Mobius is getting a socking.
Both of them.
Then I'll make it a twofer.
It just feels sad having Rex and Shulk rebond with their kids, only to depart and ascend into the computer after a few days. All the lessons and traits they picked up from their mentors should serve them well in the Ryzen 9800 X3D, and the lessons that they pass down to their mentees should serve those kids well, not only in the continuation of clockless civilization, but just their personal lives as well. Quick footnote, I am not speaking from the perspective of a parent, obviously, but I have been parented. And so I just want to add, there is obviously no playbook, no winning strategy that guarantees success as a parent. It is a fluid situation. There is no perfect solution. It's not math. What I think Rex and Shulk convey well, even in a limited runtime, is the varying ebbs and flows, highs and lows of them trying to figure out how they need to parent, of them discovering it as they go, because that's what is going to happen, because there is no real way to prepare, and there is no one-size-fits-all. There are good values to keep in mind, but nothing is guaranteed. Okay, that's it. Bye.